I believe there is a sequence and a code to unlocking anything you want in your life. What's happening?
What's up?
Welcome back.
Good to be back, man. It's one of my favorite podcasts, man. I love this, man. It's like that intro is like a who's who of people we know in real estate. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun, but I'm really glad to have you back on. I know we want to looking fly there. You looking fly?
I don't know. It's weird, man.
It's just yeah.
It's weird. It's weird. It's weird. I mean, I'm not thin and good looking like you. I gotta take care of these things. Anyway, I'm kidding with you. What's up, man? What's up?
How's things, man? I know we had you on last and kind of pre-launch of the book, and a lot's happened since then.
Absolutely. The first thing I want to do, because I want to congratulate John Kitchens on winning an XP award, or receiving an XP award from the Success Summit for his appearance on Times Square today, which will be coming up in a couple of weeks, and probably here in October. You'll be able to catch him on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. So got a good 10-minute session, did an amazing job. So he was given an award. Fortunately, he couldn't make it, but if you see him, give him a pat on the back for doing such a good job and delivering at such a high level.
And
I knew you wouldn't do that. I knew you wouldn't do that for yourself. So
alongside you.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind. You're very kind.
Thank you. Right alongside you. Very dapper in those.
Oh, thank you. Hey, thank you very much. It's nice to be able to wear a suit again. You know what I'm saying? And having lost enough weight to look human in a suit, so it was good. Thanks. Yeah, it's a good event. We missed you there for sure.
Yeah, I definitely would have loved to have made that trip. Always spending time with you and spending time with Nick. Yeah. So
Chris Voss was amazing.
Yeah. What was his kind of his message?
Well, so he talked the new movie that he did with Nick, the new documentary called what's it called? I don't remember the name of it, but I forget. It'll come back. But basically, Nick did a documentary about him and his life as a negotiator, first for the New York police and then for the FBI. A hostage negotiator, and then even doing it for the U.S. government overseas and stuff like that. So that was the story. And he came and talked, and he just told us a bunch of stories. But he talked about negotiation. I thought this was really interesting. He says, there is a traditional strategy of yes momentum, but he said if you can get if you can get a no in there and get them to say no to something that they don't want, he says you increase your conversion by 23% negotiations. So something to the effect of, hey, listen, all the other real estate agents that, you've been working with, they're okay at what they do, but, the average real estate agent is going to probably cost you, 3% to 4% of your equity. In your case, it's $20,000, and you really don't want to do that, do you? Oh, no, I don't. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Using that kind of a strategy. And so he says if you do a little Googling on it, I wish I had the link, I'd share it now, but if you do a little Googling on it, he does a whole thing. He has a good 16-minute video on using no as a negotiation strategy. So pretty cool.
That's interesting. And I know, really getting back into more negotiation, especially from a real estate agent standpoint, is going to be, really a much needed skill set at a high level.
Yeah. 100%.
So we've gone through the certified negotiation expert training, and then that was pre Chris Voss kind of being able to deliver. And
tactical empathy. That was the name of the video.
Gotcha.
Right? Because let me close the loop on that, because it's interesting that he said that when they're negotiating with when they're negotiating with hostages and stuff like that, he says one of the things you have to do is you have to use empathy to your advantage. You're somebody obviously can hurt people, but you have to be a good negotiator, you have to empathize with people and put yourself in their shoes and kind of go through what they're going through, so you can understand them at a higher level and communicate at a higher level too. So pretty interesting stuff. So it's good.
So you can be able to connect with them.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and something to the effect of, hey, God, you know, what started today? What's making today such a bad day for you? You know, what made you feel like you come and do this sort of thing? You know, how bad did things get that you had to do that? You know,
Right.
so pretty cool.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I think anything with Chris Voss, anything that you can kind of study, it is an important skill set to develop. It is one of the most critical skill sets to have, especially moving into kind of the market that we're seeing. And I know you study the market at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for those real estate agents that are tuning in, listening to this, or even anybody that's kind of gets a bite out of the industry, mortgage, title, anybody that would listen to this conversation. Just knowing what you know, been through many cycles of the real estate industry.
Is that a nice way of saying I'm old?
Yeah, that's my nice way of saying you're old. What should people be paying attention to and thinking about as we move into this last part of the year and into beginning of 23?
I know, in like just taking into consideration, your whole strategy of syntax of the right things happening in the right order, that there's a code, if you will, for everything, for success. There's a code to doing business with people in this kind of market, and one of those things is first and foremost being an expert in everything regarding the market. So understanding what's happening with interest rates, understanding what's happening with home prices, understanding what's happening with time on market, understanding what's happening with rent, and really, like we taught people during the Great Recession, really understand what's happening in your market at a high level so that you can then interpret and or extrapolate that data so that you can give people good advice. But then if we go to the very beginning of the correct code for selling houses, number one, don't work with somebody who's not really a good candidate. This is not like it was 2 years ago where, people were throwing spaghetti against the wall and whatever stuck, and, people, you buy a house, you're selling a house, we can overprice it because eventually we're going to catch up with it, or let's go put in offers of 15 houses because eventually one of those is going to work. I mean, those days are gone. I mean, it was an aberration. It was artificially manufactured just because of low inventory, what I'm saying, and confluence of low interest rates at the time. But first thing foremost, make sure you're working with the right people, somebody who's looking to buy or sell within 90 days or less. Somebody who has the financial wherewithal. Most everybody has enough equity, but can buyers get financing? Do they have cash? Is there a life event associated with it, right? Are they looking, is there a marriage, a birth, a death, a divorce? Is there something that's got a hard date associated with it? If they don't meet those three criteria, either on the buy or sell side, don't go work with them.
Right.
And so like, that's the thing. Like there's no arm twisting. There's no cajoling. There's like, what if, you have to really make sure that you're spending time with the right people. And I think for people who've been in the business since 2013 on, most everybody's been the right person, because if they could find a deal, they buy or sell. That's not the case. You've got to be really hard on who you're going to meet with. Yeah. The second thing is you got to start going 4 or 5 questions deep on every phone call to make sure this is the kind of person you're going to want to work with, and to get clear on what their goals are. Peel back the layer of that onion. Timing and motivation trump everything else.
Right. Qualified and ready.
Yeah, 100%. And I would say the third thing then is if somebody gives you an objection and says something, you ask enough questions. And it's interesting. I do study the market. I also study sales trends. 44% of salespeople bail on a sales call after the first sign of resistance. 44%, literally, like as soon as somebody says I'm not interested or I want to wait or whatever, they're done. I mean that and here's the other thing: 4 no's get you the business 66% of the time. Average number of times to get in contact with somebody to do business minimum is 6 to 8%. Most real estate agents are at like 2 to 3 contact attempts. So, you've got to do more than you did before to get there, and that requires asking questions. And here's the thing: the same thing that you would say to a buyer, you would say to seller, but for different reasons, right? Seller wants to wait. What are you waiting for? Well, we're waiting for the market to get better. We're waiting for interest rates to go down. Buyers are going to say the same thing. And if you're studying the market, basically what you're going to say to a seller is, hey, listen, 40 to 50% of the homes in just about every market across the country have already had a significant number of price reductions. Home prices have settled. If you go look in the last month, we took our hit through June and July. August, things settled. I mean, prices have settled. They're not really going down anymore, right? So for a seller's perspective, it's still a good time to sell, because the average seller, saw a 32% increase in the value of their home from February of 2020 to June of 2022. Even though we'll probably settle 10%, that still means people are going to be up with the amount of value in their home. And the same thing for buyers. Home prices are not settling, right? So the biggest risk for both of them is that interest rates are going to probably continue to go up and erode buying power and selling power, right?
Yeah.
We have no idea what's coming down the pike, but the Fed said they're going to continue to raise short-term interest rates until, inflation gets in check. That makes sense. And so that doesn't mean a one-to-one correlation with mortgage rates going up, but they're probably going to go up too. So, there's no reason to wait. So if somebody's looking to buy and stay for, 4 to 5 years or longer, and if somebody's looking to sell, those are the things that you want to take into consideration. So, it's kind of like an oversimplified version of what you would talk with about people, but, interest rates are people's biggest risk. Home prices aren't going to change dramatically anytime soon. And, waiting really doesn't benefit anybody at the moment.
Yeah. And, we, built 2 incredible programs around, working with those 2 specific type of, clientele with sellers and with buyers. And, it's really getting back to telling them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And, if your goal is only to be here in a location for a couple of years, it might be best to find a place to rent instead of buy. And that's really hard for a lot of agents because, most agents are chasing that next commission check and they absolutely need that deal. And so it's hard, but you have to do the right thing. And, really just get into that educational and asking a lot of questions and really, because if you can uncover if somebody's qualified, like what does qualified mean in today's market? And that's why you got to know what that means, but then also ready. And I think one of the things, I think you helped us set this up is that we would grade all of our opportunities on an AA scale, right? So, if they were an A, B, C based upon qualification, A, B, C based upon motivation, timing. And that really helps you narrow in your focus of who you need to be spending time and energy on, because we know this. Most real estate agents spend too much time working with people that will never even do anything in the first place. And so you can reallocate that time and energy back to the people that are really close to doing something because they are truly qualified and they truly are ready.
Yeah. And, and to your point, it's, a lot of agents, because, real estate agents are so now business focused, right? It's terrible because we've really created an industry from going back, 100 years or more. We've created an industry where most agents are just lifting up rocks, continue lifting up rocks until they find something under there that they can go with. And that's, even when things were like they were 2 years ago, you still needed to be nurturing people and building relationships with them because not everybody was going to do something then, right? If you look at the way business is broken down, only 3 to 5% of the business is now business, right? 26% of it is somewhere between 90 days and 60 and 6 months. And the rest of it, so over 60% of the business is 6 months or more away, right? So, to your point, qualified, what does qualified look like today? Like we said, they want to do something within the next 90 days or less. They've got the financial wherewithal, either equity on the sales side or money and cash and financing on the buy side, and they're actually moving because they have to, or they want to attach to something. And then after that, if they don't meet those criteria, then they're nurturing the heck out of them.
Yeah.
And that's really, it's got to be like that because, again, as you said, you can go, buyers will let you cart them around town forever. What I'm saying? There's people that, I want to go look at a house now. They're a year away,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that just kind of been on the soapbox the last couple of weeks about, and it's kind of the analogy, what I've seen with real estate agents over the last several years is it's as if they're flying their airplane up in the most beautiful blue sky, no clouds, no danger in sight. And yet they don't have one single dashboard gauge on their airplane. It's like a glider, right? It's just a propelled glider. They don't have any gauges. They don't have any compass, no direction, nothing. They're just flying in this beautiful blue sky. However, what's happening is that it's midnight and it's storming and they're about to head into the mountain range. And so visibility is one of the most important things that I see that real estate agents lack in their business. Talk to me a little bit about, like, as an agent, what are some of the most critical things from a visibility standpoint that they need to, like, hey, you need to make sure you have this gauge in your business and you need to be paying attention to it?
Yeah. So great question. I was thinking about this as I was talking, you were talking a minute ago. everybody needs to have, in my opinion, a whiteboard that is broken down into 3 segments. Far left, everything that's under agreement. What's in the center is listing opportunities, and on the far side, it's buyer opportunities, and needs to be broken into 4 quadrants: 90 days, 180 days, 270 days, 365 days. And you need to have a very clear vision of where your opportunities are in each of those quadrants, and what it's going to, and what you need to do to move those people, continually move them up. This isn't like, things are coming at you like the Audubon, 2 years ago, last couple of years, you have so much coming out, you can't do it. You really have to be really strategic and pay attention to managing a pipeline properly. And number one, who stays and who goes. Number two, how do I get you from 365 to 270 to 180 to 90? So I think the first thing, in your field of vision needs to be what your opportunities are.
Yeah.
Right. You should be able to source where your business is coming from every month. I should be able to sit down in January and say, okay, who do I think is going to buy a house in February, sell a house in February? Who do I think is going to buy and sell a house in March, right? And you should be able to see that coming down the pike, and you should be able to move it down the pipeline. The other thing is, in this, we've been preaching this since day one of coaching. You need to be looking at, KCM. You need to get the KCM reports. You got to watch that video, all 45 minutes of it, and look at those slides every month. You need to get real market reports or Altos research, and you've got to be looking at, what's happening, on a week by week over week basis in your area. Mike Simonson from Altos Research, he's the CEO. He puts out about a 10, 11-minute video every week. And if you go to YouTube and sign up for Altos Research, you'll automatically get notification when that video comes up, and he tracks exactly what's happening in the real estate market, time on market, new listings, homes that aren't selling, interest rates. He even said that rents have started to come down a little bit too. You need to know that. You need to be understanding what's coming down the pike so you can advise people as to what they need to do to buy and sell a house, right? So that definitely needs to be in your field of vision. I would say the other thing is knowing where you need improvement. Really, understanding what needs improvement. The reason we have people track stuff is so they can see not just where they've been, but what they need to do to improve, to move forward. Right? You should be, it doesn't matter if you're selling 100 homes or 10 homes, you should be tracking your dials, your contacts, your nurtures, your appointments shown, and how that turns into a sale. Those 6 things, and every month look at it. And, if you did a lot of dials and didn't get a lot of contacts, what was the data set I was calling? What time was I calling? Did I make enough dials? If you're making contacts but people aren't meeting with you, is it the data set? Is it my scripts and dialogues? People are showing up, but they're not buying. Am I meeting with the wrong people? Am I meeting people who are unmotivated? You know what I'm saying? So, I think you need to continually see what's working and what's not working for you, so you can make corrections so that you are doing what you need to do. I think those are probably the most important things. Now, what's going on in the market? What's my pipeline look like? How am I moving it down the pipeline? And if I'm stagnant or stagnating or not doing well in a specific area, what is it so I can do a better job? The knee-jerk reaction in a market like this is to go find shiny nickels and pennies that you think are going to, jumpstart your business and change your fortunes forever. Right? That no box is going to show up with that magic, bullet in there. Like this is the time where you got to grind. You know what I'm saying? You got to roll up your sleeves. You got to be prospecting. You've got to be building relationships. If I were to pick up 4 pillars right now where I would spend my time, it would be buyer leads for sure. Good buyer opportunity. Seller's market in most markets, but not like it was before. So, but buyer leads, I would be calling expireds, withdrawals for sale by owners and circle prospecting. I would be doing open houses like crazy and getting people out there. And I would be spending time with my past clients in Sphere. That's where I would spend most of my time on the phone talking with people. And then I would make sure that I was on social media on a regular basis, building my reputation and sharing and adding value. That's where I would spend most of my time right now. Right. Awesome. They got all these people that are be like, oh, you need to be doing this. You need to be buying this. And, oh, these leads are more likely to do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. That's when you get scared, you start grabbing at straws. That's what happens. The next thing you know, you're at Walmart. And it's just one more thing. Tom Ferry had his conference last, what do you call it? I think 2 weeks ago, he said that they're anticipating that 30% of the agents in the marketplace will no longer be here by the end of January of next year. Am I here by myself? Looks like I am. I'm playing the part of John Kitchens today. I'd like to thank you for joining us. I'm sure he'll be back here shortly. Well, just in general, so if you're not aware of what's going on in your surroundings, in your market, not just your local market, but even in markets around you. You need to be spending time on a regular basis, making sure that you do actually go and find out that information. Altos Research is a great resource. Real Market Reports is a great source. The KCM stuff is really, really important. MBA.org, which is the Mortgage Bankers Association of America. They give all kinds of great information on what's happening with mortgage rates, so you can see what's happening there. I'd also take a look at drhousingbubble.com and make sure that you follow him. He does a blog, and he updates it once a month with the things that are hitting the market the most. In September, he said that there's 392 or 397 distinct real estate markets in the United States. He said that about half of them, 183 of them, are going to see a correction of up to 20%. So he thinks that over half, which is good news and bad news, but that roughly half of the country is overvalued still. Yeah, so, but I would definitely follow him on a regular basis too. But if you follow those things that I just mentioned and you stay on top of those on a regular basis, you'll have all the information you need to have a good conversation with people.
Yeah, being able to educate and advise. And I was spent some time with the number one team in the state of Utah, the number one team at Real last week. And, they used to base kind of their agreements with their agents around, contracts, closed production, and they've shifted. They shifted their agreements with their agents around effort and really based upon, are you putting in the effort? That's the agreement. This is our standard of effort. Mm-hmm. And are you meeting that standard to have an opportunity to be a part of this organization? So I think that's where the focus has to be. And it's like what you were saying. It's like, hey, did I even make enough dials to even have enough conversations before you start blaming it on, diving deep on other things? It's like, and, I've always kind of joked, you want the silver bullet. The silver bullet is effort. Mm-hmm. And you can really, I think right now in this stretch, you can out effort your way past a lot of people in the marketplace right now.
Yeah. And we used to do people like, what should I do for a sales contest? Contacts. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's probably the greatest leading indicator of anything in your business. You know what I'm saying? The number of people you talk to, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, people are like, oh, whoever sets the most appointments so long. I mean, that's, if you're seasoned, that's great. But if you're not, that sucks. I mean, not even, contacts and maybe dials before that, you know what I'm saying? Because dials are a leading indicator to contacts. Yeah. But, to your point, every sales career on the face of the planet is a mathematical certainty. Meaning if you do enough of X, then Y will happen. Mm-hmm. And you should be able to, and here's the thing, let's just say it takes 100 contacts to sell a home. Then, every 100 contacts you make, you're going to sell a home. Yeah. If Tony Robbins, Mastering Influence, he tells a story about when he first started working for Jim Rohn, and he was calling and prospecting and, they had a sales contest, whoever made the most sales was getting some trip. He's like this kid, right? He's 17, 19 years old. And he says to these guys, like, I'm going to win the contacts. You guys are better salespeople than me. He said, but I'm going to outwork you. And he said he basically just out-contacted everybody. But the natural byproduct of that is as you get on the phone, you have more contacts, you talk to more people, your skill set gets better. You end up having to talk to fewer people to make it happen. Yeah. Right. But this environment, especially, you're going to have to talk to more people than you would in any other, than the last market, because you're going to have to kiss a whole lot more frogs to get a prince. So I love that idea that effort is right. It's effort, skill, tools, and data, right? Those are the four biggies, right? So data is data, leads a lead, right? Tools. I mean, any CRM closed loop lead generation system that's out there is going to get you the leads and the ability to contact people and to call your data. Then for that matter, it's effort and skill. Yeah. And quite honestly, effort breeds skill. Right. Repetition is the mother of skill. So,
Yeah. No, I love it, and I think that's just where people need to be right now and not get paralyzed and really focus on, day to day with what's in my control. Mm-hmm. And, is that really in my control or is it not? And that's just, is that within your control? And mm-hmm. They're talking about like, hey, I'm going to take a listing today. That's not within your control. Like mm-hmm. What is truly in your control and how are you winning every day doing those activities?
I know. This is kind of like, I think this is the physical embodiment of Mike Tyson's quote, which is everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Right.
Right. We just got punched in the mouth. Right. We did. And we're going to get punched again. So here's the interesting thing. If you go and look at, Statista, they do great. They collect all kinds of great data. If you go look at the historical annual number of homes sold, 2007 was insane. I think we sold over 7 million homes. The most homes ever sold in a year. And then by the time we got to like 2009, we dropped all the way down to like 4.12 million. These are existing home sales. And then in 2012, things started to recover. But since I want to say since 13 on, we haven't sold less than 5 million homes a year. Right. And last year we sold over 6 million. They're still expecting us to sell somewhere between 5 and 6 million this year. So the only thing that's really changed was the number of real estate agents that got into the market. Mm-hmm. Right. Because we sold somewhere between 5.25 and 5.5 million homes a year for the last 8 years. So the only thing that really changed was the number of agents that got into the market. We're at 1.6.4 million realtors. We're about 2 million real estate agents. So,
so somebody hearing that, what does that mean? What does that mean to them?
It means you're going to have to take somebody else's business. You're going to have to out effort them. You're going to have to out hustle them. Yeah. Right. And that's kind of, that's the whole point here is that, you have to work harder. You've got to outwork somebody in order to go ahead and continue to get business. Right. The good news is even if we do have some attrition in the number of home sales, there's also going to be some attrition or reduction in number of home sales. There's going to be attrition in the ranks of the real estate agents. You know what I'm saying? But
I don't want people to hear that and think, oh shit, I'm already working 12 hours a day. I can't squeeze any more hours out of it. Right. I think it's more effort on the things that matter.
Yeah. And working on things and in things, like moving papers from one side of your desk to the other. I think the old colloquialism is like rearranging chairs on the Titanic, in the deck of the Titanic, really, being active, but not, what's not taking action. So it's being active versus not taking action. Listen, if you're working 12 hours a day, but you're not working on things that move the needle, then it doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter how fast you run, how hard you run, and not get anything done. This is really about making phone calls, building relationships, getting out there, doing open houses, getting on social media once a day, putting some good data out there. I mean, some good content out there, and forever just getting in front of people and stuffing that pipeline filled with opportunities.
Right.
Yeah. Sitting down, going to training. Sure, that's important, but a couple hours a day prospecting for new people, 1 hour a day talking to people an open house once or twice a week. That's really what you need to be spending your time on.
Yeah, the activities that matter. I mean, there's definitely, marketing and branding strategies that are in play.
Sure.
But everything that you need to be intentional. Everything you're doing, and probably asking yourself this question: is this going to drive me to a conversation?
Mm-hmm. That's it.
And everything's trending. You cannot automate a real estate transaction.
Nope.
And so it'll always come down to a decision of trust. It'll always come down to a conversation. And you need to be thinking, is this activity going to drive me to a conversation? Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of your default filter that when you're doing an activity is like, hey, is this going to get us a conversation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and we've been saying this since day one too. It's about working smarter, not working harder.
Right.
100%. And working smarter is doing things that will lead to a conversation, as you said. So, when Labor Day came, Veterans Day's coming, Memorial Day's coming, sticking flags in somebody's front lawn is nice, but is it going to lead to a conversation?
Right.
Sending out the schedule for your local football team, nice. Branding, is it going to lead to a conversation? Probably not. What I'm saying? Like all those things are great, but what are you doing to get somebody to get on the phone with you? Emails, text messages, nice. Probably not going to lead to a conversation. And I'm reading a book by Jeffrey Gidma right now on God, I wish I could remember the name of it. It's a problem because it's actually a really good. It's a really good book. Let me just I'm going to bring it up here because it's cool because he talks. It's a lot of mindset stuff around sales, but he I think it's a little book of sales or whatever, but hold on a sec here. It's the
get your own app.
No. Yeah, the Little Red Book of Selling. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a really good book. But he says something. He says, people are running around, no like and trust, get people to trust you. Well, you know what? He says you got to get people to like you first before they're going to trust you.
That's right.
Right. And they're not going to like you because you sent them a freaking text. They're not going to like you because you sent them a handwritten note. They're not going to like you because
that's a right thing, right order, right? They got to know you, then they got to like you, and then they got to trust you.
That's right. And right. So you want to get them to know you. You got to meet them. You got to talk to them. Find any relationship in the world that is the best relationship you have with somebody, and it's because you guys talk.
Yeah. And have my favorite definition of trust is authenticity times time, right? So like,
times time. Look at you.
Times time.
I like that.
So it's got to be times time before trust is built.
I like that.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
And so people are like, and again, I think a lot of times we're looking at the chapter 12s of the Andrew Gadoshes and the Jay Kinders and the Maddie O'Neills and the, all these other people out there. We're looking at chapter 12, chapter 15 of their life. But, their chapter 1 was 2008 when they, were selling 15 homes, 20 homes and had no clue how to navigate what was going on in that market. And basically they got their asses on the phone. Can I say ass? Too late. Anyway, they got their asses on the phone.
Whatever you want.
They get their asses on the phone and they make phone calls. They did what they needed to do. They went and met people and talked to people, and that's never going to go away. I remember when, the internet actually technically, I think it hit the ground officially in April of 2005. I mean, 1995, sorry. So April of 1995, I think it was when it officially became a thing. You could use it, a thing. April 1995. And I remember you seeing, the news, you're never going to buy another car. You're never going to buy another house. You're never going to buy one thing. We work with a salesperson. You're going to be able to buy it all online. And certain industries got squashed. We've talked about, differentiation. We've talked about death of businesses. I mean, we do that in our boot camp, right? But you know what? You can buy a house online, and some people do, but it's a huge investment, and people still need to talk to somebody so they don't get effed.
Right.
So they get good guidance, so they make a good choice. So real estate agents are not going away.
No.
Now, bad real estate
innovation. Something you said there real quick. I just want to kind of bring this full circle.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a great point. And I think it goes back to the gap in the gain concept with real estate agents. They see these agents and they don't realize, right? You look at like Jay, and just Jay's a great example. This guy that's like, well, all of this success. Well, let's go back to 97, 98 when he got licensed, and the decade plus 2 decades of just pouring into the real estate industry. Traveling to every conference, every event, building relationships, pouring in. And then, an opportunity comes along and he decides to make a withdrawal. That's how I see it. Right. Like people can judge. And I think that's where, and then that's the gap in the gain concept. They get this ideal and they're like, well, why am I not there? Why am I not to that point? It's like, well, what chapter are you on in your career?
And so to your point, just to go a little further, that was, at what level are you giving? What I'm saying? Like, at what level are you giving to people? And listen, it's not just about giving. And I want to draw a distinction here. One of the things I've learned over the last couple of years of working with people and having to overcome sales call reluctance is that when people don't feel good about themselves and they have low self-esteem, low self-worth, instead of taking care of themselves, they go and give to other people because that fills that need of feeling good about who you are because you're helping other people. But then they don't take care of themselves, and eventually their problems get really, really bad, and they get worse and worse and worse, and they can give to nobody. It's that whole, airline analogy, in the event of a loss of cabin pressure, masks are going to come down, put yours on first, then help somebody else, right? Yeah. So if you want to give to people, that's fine, but make sure you're taking care of home base. Make sure that the goose that lays the golden egg is well cared for, because otherwise it's hard for you to give to other people. So, but to that point, one of the things I always marveled about with Jay and Mike is that they gave people everything. They didn't care. Didn't matter. I mean, I was coaching Ali Satsaz, who was in Mike's office 3 doors down from him, using the stuff that Mike was using in his business. You know what I'm saying? And so giving at that level, as long as your business is doing well and you're taking care of yourself, it's going to come back to you in spades. So for sure, 100%, I agree with that. But there's a right time for it as well. You can't just stop what you're doing and give to other people and expect your business to explode, because you still got to do your own stuff.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Touch on a little bit more with that, with the reluctancy. And I think, people have, formed some bad habits over the last few years, been rewarded for bad behavior. And so as they are starting to,
That's amazing.
as
That's
they're
amazing. It's
starting
like
to,
that's like you just summed up the last 2 years of real estate business in a that could be a bumper sticker. You know what I'm saying? Don't get rewarded for bad behavior. Anyway.
so as they're starting to say, okay, all right, I got to have these conversations, but that reluctancy builds in.
Mhm.
And I know this is kind of, your expertise. Give kind of just a couple of little pointers that can get them with their momentum rolling, right? They've got some drag with it. They've got some reluctancy. What can help them, like we're talking about the oxygen mask on first, like what are some things to help strengthen themselves so that they can move through a couple of those barriers? Because you and I know that's probably the number one thing that's going to, either they can push through in this market or, they're going to be at Walmart or Amazon.
Yeah, or Amazon, whatever. Probably Amazon, right?
Probably.
But it's interesting because what I found recently in talking to people is that awareness is such a powerful tool in making the changes you need to make. Right. I mean, it is the most powerful tool in at least getting started, because you have to be aware of where the problem rests. I can't tell you how many people, I come to me, they're like, hey, I saw your podcast, or I was here, or I was there. And they're like, I'm having trouble picking up the phone, or I can't get in front of a video camera. And, we talk for 15 minutes. And the first thing I ask them is like, how was your relationship with your parents? How was your childhood? We ask a few questions, and then, your subconscious mind starts looking. I'm asking, and eventually what people realize, like, oh my God, I never realized that me being bullied, or me having, an alcoholic father, or me, whatever, something happened when I was a kid, I didn't realize that that's what was keeping me from being willing to get on the phone. There's an emotional reason. And for 65% of the people, it comes from a very strong need for approval or to be liked.
Yeah.
That keeps them from getting on the phone. So, the first thing I would do is really find out why. The first thing I have people do is I have them take a note card. I get 2 note cards, actually 5x7 note cards, and just ask the question, what is the source of my call reluctance? What is the source of my procrastination? What is the source of my perfectionism? Whatever. And you keep one with you. You look at it during the day, you put one next to your nightstand. By the next day, you'll know, because your subconscious remembers everything you ever tasted, touched, felt. Tasted, touched, smelled, heard, or seen. Remembers it all. So whatever happened is there, and go and find it. And believe it or not, that awareness alone gives people a tremendous amount of hope, because now they're like, now I know why I've not been able to do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so that's the first and the second thing, and is really going and attacking it, and telling yourself the opposite, affirmations of the opposite of what you've been telling yourself. So if you've been saying to yourself, you're not good enough, well, one of your affirmations needs to be, hey, I'm good enough just the way that I am, and I need nobody's approval but my own, something like that. You need to be reading books. I would say one of the books that I recommend people read most often is Brene Brown's The Gifts of Imperfection, because that whole book is really about, accepting yourself as you are, and really not trying to live up to other people's, expectations and beliefs in you, and then really, lastly, mindfulness meditation. I'm saying, like, our brain, we talk about neuroplasticity, I'm saying we can reframe what our brain will do and won't do. And mindfulness meditation is the best way to do that. And you can go to YouTube into the mindful movement. And if you just 10 minutes a day of just, and you do this, like I'm surprised, the people at Headspace haven't fired you yet, because you've probably like, you've probably gotten your money's worth times 10 from them. Right. But say 30,000 something hours, or some sort of like whatever
minutes,
yeah.
30,000,
yeah, right. People at Headspace are like, we need to cancel this guy's account. We're
9 years, almost 9 years.
Yeah, right. But the thing is what you've probably realized is that things that used to bother you don't bother you anymore. You probably realize that you probably sleep better, and there are probably thoughts that used to enter your mind that don't even make it past anywhere. And the reason is because when you do mindful meditation, you're training your brain to not let thoughts that are painful, and emotions that are painful or not painful, destructive. I'm sorry. You're not going to let destructive, negative, disempowering emotions come in. So your brain literally does the work for you. It stops it from coming in, but you got to do that. You got to start working on it. So, you got to do some mindful meditation, and eventually by working on those things, by saying the right things to yourself, by reading, journaling, super important too, getting that stuff out of your head and onto paper, doing some mindfulness meditation. Eventually, the whatever it is that's telling you that gremlin, as Rick Carson calls it, that's been holding you back, doesn't have so much power, and you'll be able to start getting on the phone and talking to people. But it takes some work. You got to go find out what it is, and then you got to start, reversing the damage that has been that's been created. I think it's not your fault. The great thing to realize, it's not your fault. When you're 8 years old and somebody beat the crap out of you, and you started running from pain, that's not your fault. But you have to take responsibility for it. So do the no card thing, find out what it is, realize that it's causing anxiety or whatever it's causing, and then choose some good affirmations, a new 10 minutes of affirmations a day, journal for 10 minutes a day, do some mindfulness meditation, and really focus on just not thinking anything for 10 minutes. Do guided ones, not like doing it your own. Go find Headspace or the Mindful Movement and spend 10 minutes a day doing that. And eventually, your mindset will shift and you'll be able to start getting on the phone. Now, that's oversimplifying it, but that's part of what I teach people to do, and it works.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful. And, just if you get into those rituals on a daily basis, it's amazing, just even in a short amount of time, how it can just transform who you are, the way you think, how you proceed, how you view things, what like you said, what bothers you, what doesn't bother you. And it's, it allows you to focus is really what it is, right? It's doing the things that reduce all of the stress that we have in our bodies, removes that stress so we can truly focus. And when that stress level's high, it's almost impossible. You can stress your way to a certain point, but you'll hit that ceiling, right? You look at us and what we were able to achieve in a real small market. At the time, it was pretty remarkable. And we were also number 2, which was even more remarkable. Yet that was the most stressed we were in our lives, out of shape, failure of relationships, drinking because we felt we had to drink instead of out of just sheer, hey, fun. And so you can stress your way to a certain point, but if you keep hitting that ceiling and you meet that resistance, you've got to remove that stress. And everything that you just shared right there, to me, is the secret to reducing stress and focus and being able to, right? It's that whole, what got you here won't get you there. And so
it doesn't, I'm living proof of it myself. 3 years ago, I was at rock bottom, I'm saying, and I hadn't dealt with anything from 45 plus years of my life. And last three plus years, I've worked on it and made significant changes in who I am, my physiology, my mindset, my belief system, what I do on a everyday basis. And it doesn't matter how old you are and how long you've been dealing with something. If you take the initiative and start working on things, things can change for you, but you've got to take the initiative. It's just not going to go away. And if you ever need to be mentally tough as a real estate agent, it would be right now. Because, you've got to, you're going to, if you don't feel like you earned your money back during the last 2 years, you will earn it now, because it's going to be hard, but it can happen.
Talk. I want to, before we wrap up here, I want to spend some time on, your book. I know we had kind of teased it last time we talked about it, and was able to gift it to our.
Oh yes, man.
Clients.
We haven't talked. I wanted to thank you again for doing that. I was amazing, seeing all the nice comments that people give me, text messages and stuff is really awesome. I really appreciate you doing that, man. That was amazing. So, and I knew a bunch of those people anyway too, right? So, but it was really cool. It's interesting. You've been telling me to write a book for years, right? Oh, you got to write a book. Oh, you got to write a book. And it just, everything happens in its own time. It's right time. But it's been great. It's doing exactly what I wanted it to do, which was to help people, identify with somebody that's gone through what they've gone through. I get a lot of things from people like, oh my God, I felt like I was reading a book about my childhood, or, now I can see this now. I can see it now. I understand it now. Like this really, it's touching people and meeting them where they need to be met, which is, hey, listen, whatever happened, but that doesn't need to keep any real estate in your mind anymore. You can do something about it. So it's been great. It hit
for you though. I believe it was part of that 3-year transformation that you just shared, right?
Yeah, it was,
rock bottom to have part of that transformation. And I remember Nick shared something with us a couple of weeks ago. He said, sometimes you have to write that book to be able to move on.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And to your point, a lot of people who go through a lot of the stuff that I've gone through, they feel shame. They don't want people to know that they had addictions to whatever it was. They don't want people to know that they were sexually abused. They don't want people to know that, all these things happened. And, I just, for me, and, once you tell your story and you tell everything, you take all the power away. Mm-hmm. Hey, you've had sex with a ridiculous amount of women. Yep, certainly have. Hey, you weighed almost 500 pounds when you went to prison. Certainly did. You went to prison. Absolutely. What I'm saying? When you acknowledge it and own it, and that's kind of what I talk about in the book. One of the themes throughout the book is radical transparency and radical honesty and radical responsibility. You got to be transparent with yourself, be radically honest about the way things actually are, and then take radical responsibility for it. But when you do that, it's ridiculously freeing. And believe it or not, putting this book out there, like, it's all in there. Every last thing, for the most part, is in there. What I'm saying? So I did it. I own it. I did it. And it's so ridiculously freeing, Yeah. And it just, people live with so much shame. Guilt is, feeling badly about something you did. Shame is actually believing that you are that bad behavior. What I'm saying? And so, I lived in a tremendous amount of shame, and just writing the book and getting it out the door, I was like, ooh, what a load off. What I'm saying? I don't know. I sit there and hide and cower, and, and so that was very freeing, and that's why journaling is so good too, because you get all these thoughts out of your brain and onto a piece of paper where you can make sense of them. But it's been great. I just, it's actually connected me with a lot of people I've lost connection with, friends from high school and grammar school and people from college and stuff like that. And it's not even about the attaboys. It's just like, oh my God, I didn't know this happened to you. This happened to me. And it's been a great way to connect with people,
Yeah.
So, and it's good. I think it's, I'm looking for it to be a platform so I can help more people,
Yeah.
So, but so I appreciate you asking that.
Yeah. You absolutely will.
Thank you,
brother. I appreciate you so much.
Love you.
You're like a tremendously busy, so carving out some time to jump in. If people, where's the best place to grab a copy of your book?
They can just go to Amazon and just put in Tragic Hero Wally Bressler. It's available on Kindle and in hard copy. And next week I'll be recording the Audible version of it, so I'm excited about that. And but yeah, it's been quite a ride, and I'm kind of still at the very beginning of it. So
yeah.
But yeah, thanks. I appreciate you. I love coming on your show. Come on anytime. But anybody who's watching this, you guys, you're in the right place to get. If you're needing and wanting to, not just survive but thrive this next, turn in the business. John's your guy.
Appreciate that.
Cool.
Appreciate you having on.
Appreciate you. Love you. See you. Love you too. Bye bye.
Yeah.